Facebook Live. Here we are again, Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Rythmia Life Advancement Center. R. Christian Minson here, coming to you live. Welcome everyone. If you're tuning into the recording, skip about 4 to 5 minutes ahead. That's when we'll get started with the content. Right now we're just in live mode, waiting for people to show up. And we have our first one, Doreen Ann. Welcome. And go ahead and say hi to me. Tell me where you're from. Give me any updates of what's going on with you. Debbie Garcia, Gord Barrett, some likes and thumbs up. Great job. Welcome everyone. It's nice and warm and windy here in Costa Rica. Kevin's from BC, regular. Doreen from LA. Doreen, that's a very long name you get there. Debbie, hey Debbie. Of course, you know Debbie's in LA or Southern California there. Victoria from Florida. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, thanks for the likes and hearts. We got an active crowd today. I like that. Candice Marie Fox, what are you doing on there, Candice? And Martin, hi there. Welcome everyone. Just getting a few names in there. What can I do to tell you? Had some good ceremonies this week. It's been a smaller crowd, which has been nice for those who have been here. A little bit more elbow room, so to speak. But nonetheless, things have been going great. I'm just waiting a few minutes for people to show up, as I usually do. I'm trying to think of any new news on the horizon. I will mention that being the breathwork guy here, that we've got Greg Braden coming in November, and this is going to be a breathwork week here at Rythmia. So if you're really interested in doing the breathwork, if that's your forte and you're a little bit concerned about plant medicine, you're scared or just morally opposed or physically unable to, consider coming for that breathwork week in November. I think it's third week in November with Greg Braden. I was just with him in his retreat in New Mexico at the beginning of the month, and we out of the 4 days, I did 2 breathwork sessions for his crowd of 265 people. So that was a huge crowd. I thought it was the world record, at least in the transformational breath world. My teacher informed me she did 300 a while back, but from what I get, mine went a lot smoother than that. So welcome. Tell us, Sabrina from Dallas, how you doing? Michelle Dixon's here. Hey there. Hi. And Jeff Clark. A lot of names I recognize. This is always good. We're here catering to the folks who have been to Rythmia before, as well as those who've never been. And you can get used to us here. Get a smiley face. People often get off the bus and they're like, "Hey, I feel like I know you because I've watched so many of the Facebook Lives," and that's part of what we strive to do here, to give you a sense of, feeling at home before you even get here, because it is a pretty intense week when you're here, and that's, we want to minimize that intensity. All right, so hey, Celeste has joined. Welcome, and Jamie Brown too. Hey, Jamie Brown, another facilitator in the breathwork realm. All right, well, we're a little smaller crowd today, but we're at that time frame where it's time to get started. So officially welcome everybody to Facebook Live Friday Breathwork Edition. My name is R. Christian Minson, the director of the Breathwork program here at Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I'm a certified transformational breath facilitator, senior trainer with the Transformational Breath Foundation for the last 12 years, speaker, author, internet coach, and ultimately your catalyst for evolution and awakening. So welcome. Today we're talking about the foundational importance of respect. Cultivating Respect is the title. And so we're going to talk about cultivating that and the 3 avenues with which to cultivate this respect. You know, when I was thinking about this title, as much as it just being important in my own life, I see that I talked a few weeks back about relationship as a vehicle for transformation and evolution. And so, you know, what does that mean? To evolve really means to become more aligned, to harmonize with the higher level principles of living. This is how I define evolution of our human spiritual being. And, you know, I believe that respect is one of the foundational elements to harmonious living. So the net result is unhappiness if these foundations aren't observed. If we don't bring respect into our daily lives, a lot of unhappiness seems to ensue. And when it's really observed, when we take the time to build that foundation of respect, happiness, peace, and content can result if followed. So this is where we're at. Rick, hello from the UK, and Jenny Greer, hello. So, you know, what is respect? I feel like today we're going to talk about 3 different kinds of respect. First of all, respect for others. This might be the most obvious one. Respect really the foundation of relationship, as I said. So if it's not there, if respect's not there, there'll always be issues. And this was so poignant to me back years ago. I was in this argument with this guy, and we, you know, as much as I tried to convince him that I was right, which is usually what we're trying to do in an argument, right? He just dug in his heels even more, and he fired back and tried to convince me that he was right. And this went on and on until I don't even remember what the subject of the fight was. It was so, fight argument. It was, didn't really matter, because what I realized in that moment was, and I don't know how, it just kind of came to me in a thought bubble that he didn't feel like I respected him. And so I took this approach then that I started communicating to him about our relationship, that I felt like that I honored him, that I felt like he was a good guy, a contributor, all this kind of stuff, and really firming up this foundation of respect. And then, it's like the argument shifted, and he basically got in alignment with what I was saying. Now, it wasn't an issue of who was right or wrong in that moment. What I learned there was that the issue wasn't the surface issue at all. The issue was the respect there. And I dare say, if you look at any arguments you've got in your life, in your personal life, that's likely to be really the root issue. And I recommend trying to address that. How can you make the other person feel respected, and then see if that doesn't harmonize the relationship. Then there's the second kind of respect, is respect for the earth, right? So in these indigenous cultures, there's a name for the earth, Pachamama, and that whole mama part, goes in line with the idea of Mother Earth, the earth being our support mechanism, the earth being that which, like a mother, supports us, feeds us, everything that we're clothed in, everything we're housed in, everything we create for our protection, all comes from the earth. And so it's really important to recognize, as they say, not to bite the hand that feeds, that the earth is the biggest hand that feeds us. And it is the source of our supply on a physical level. So it's important to acknowledge that and to get in alignment with respecting the earth accordingly. And then the third respect that really to address is respect for yourself. And I dare say from my own experience that this really is the source of all other outer respect issues. So whether it's respect for the earth, respect for other people, respect for your boss, your girlfriend or boyfriend, your friends, that it all really comes back to respect for yourself. That if you're not respecting yourself, that reflects in how you perceive the outer environment. In the Christian scriptures, there's a passage: love thy Lord God above all else, and then love thy neighbor as thyself. These are the two greatest commandments, something to that effect. And I always thought that it's that love thy neighbor as thyself is the trickiest one, because it's all, most of the time it's interpreted to, treat your neighbor well, right? Because you want to love them like you love yourself. But if you really get into it, it's, if you don't love yourself, you're not going to treat your neighbor with love and respect. So treat your neighbor as you would yourself really requires you first to make sure that you're treating yourself with a certain amount of respect. And so what I want to get into then is how to follow these, how to cultivate this respect in these three different ways. So if we're looking at respecting others, then we want to first, I'd say, when you're with others, is to look for commonalities, right? To acknowledge the commonalities, acknowledge the things that, if you generally like things about yourself, look for those things in the other person. What is it that you can really admire and honor, and then share with that person? Communicate it. Respect for others really comes out of communication. Sometimes, and this is a big lesson for myself, really is learning that when you don't communicate, that the other person tends to fill in the blanks. And again, whether it's a workmate, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's just with your friends, that a lack of communication creates a void that needs to be filled. And if it's not filled with factual information, people will make up stuff. And in my experience, usually they make up the worst. They assume the worst and fill that blank in with the worst. So communicate to authentically express your feelings to other people. If you are disagreeing, one way to communicate respect is to disagree with the ideas that people have and not with the person themselves. So you don't say you're wrong, you're bad, you're whatever because you think this way. It's like, I don't agree with that idea, and I'll explain why. And so in that way, you're separating the idea or the concepts that you're really in disagreement with from the person who, again, you can be in mental disagreement with somebody and still share that sense of respect or that sense of kinship, so to speak, with all people and really all life. A few more people joined in. Tammy and Tom, how you doing? And Zinlin, Jenny Greer, if I hadn't acknowledged you already. Watch your language then with respect when we're trying to cultivate respect, you want to watch your language, like using language that's going to be pointing at the person rather than at the concept you're in disagreement with. Using superlatives like always and never tend not to cultivate a lot of respect either, because rarely in any kind of disagreement or argument or communication is there always something one way, or is there never something one way. And by doing that, you're basically, by saying that, you're discounting, even if it's 90% of that one way, you're discounting the 10% when it's a different way. And people feel disrespected if you're not acknowledging that, sometimes it can be a different way. So that's, you want to watch your language. And then really, I think probably the best way to cultivate respect for others is to come at life from a serviceful attitude, which means, come at life and how can I make life better for those around me, rather than how can I get the most out of the situation for myself? How can I, extract the most and make it best for me? So, it's often, when I'm talking about this point, I often say you don't actually have to do anything different. Like if you're working in an office and you're doing some job or some task, it's really that you don't have to change your job or task in order to align with this serviceful attitude. It's just that you change your mental attitude. How can I do this as in a spirit of making life better for somebody else, or making a situation better for somebody? So if you approach people with that attitude, they're going to feel that at a deep level, and that's going to help cultivate that respect. Tom's smiling, hey there, and Shelby says hi. So moving on to how we cultivate respect for the earth. First of all, to use your imagination. Imagine the earth as your mother. If you somebody who's providing for you in an ideal sense. Some of us maybe didn't have the greatest mothers, but in an ideal sense, a mother is the nurturer, right? The mother is the safety, providing for you. And so if we recognize the earth as the mother, first of all, we're going to develop a different type of relationship with her. Being aware of what we're consuming here on this planet, recognizing that we are in a finite space, that there isn't infinite resource and there isn't infinite space to be lackadaisical with those resources. So to reduce our ability, they say in the whole recycling kick, reduce, reuse, and recycle, right? To reduce is really getting in touch with, do I need to consume so much resource? Is it necessary for me to take? Reuse. So instead of having a resource, getting rid of it, getting another one, getting rid of it, all that is piling up somewhere. So we've got to want to try instead to take some resource and continue to use it until it's no longer, we can no longer use it. And then to recycle, to start to make choices in alignment with things that we don't just throw away and create trash and toxicity, but that we can recycle and use again. So that goes in the next point, really not polluting. Think about just simple things. My my father was really big on if we ever dropped something on the ground that he admonished us to pick it up and throw it in a trash can. And really, again, out of respect for the earth and ultimately respect for others too, especially in public places. Nothing worse than going to a beautiful public place and it's littered with trash from everybody who didn't have the respect to pick up their little bits, even if it's the smallest thing. It's like, oh, it's just a small little thing, a piece of gum or whatever. But hundreds and thousands of people later, that becomes a real issue. So recognizing that resources are limited and ultimately recognizing that they're sacred, that everything that comes from the earth is ultimately sacred. The earth is the vehicle through which spirit is manifested, all of the things that we need. And in this symbiotic relationship, spirit is constantly with us through the vehicle of the earth and what the earth provides. So really developing a sense of sacredness for these different resources gives us a chance to express more respect for the earth. And then, as an extension of the earth, I'd say really recognizing animals as well. Again, I think it's Christian scriptures that there's some Christian or maybe it's the Eastern scriptures, probably both, that where there's a responsibility for those of more intelligence to care for those beings of less intelligence. And so the animals that roam this earth are generally considered of less intelligence. And some people have taken the idea that we have dominion over them to be we can rape and pillage and do whatever we want with them. But that dominion is like a benevolent stewardship, that we need to care for them and make sure, like a older brother or older sister would care for their younger siblings who aren't old enough and wise enough yet to know how to navigate the world, that we're going to care for our lesser beings, the animals, in the similar kind of way. So generally choosing in favor of less harm. There's a concept in the Vedic tradition called ahimsa, which is nonviolence. This is really to be as peaceful in our actions as possible. So not to be violent to, of course, to others and ultimately to the animals and the earth. And then in looking at ways that we can be more respectful to ourselves, first of all, is to practice discipline, to constantly discipline ourselves to be on a path of self-improvement. Because once again, the purpose of life is this evolution, this continual meeting of higher and higher levels of being. And if we aren't going forward, we're going backwards. And how we know, once again, is a certain level of happiness and understanding. If we're feeling happy, we're generally in alignment. And I don't mean a temporary sense happiness like a big party binge that then leads to hangover and less happiness in the days to come, but a sustained type of happiness, which comes from self-improvement. When you create a goal and you work towards that goal and you achieve it, that gives you a certain sense of happiness, a certain sense of self-respect. A way to continue to develop that respect is continuous alignment with your higher self. And we do this through processes like meditation, like breath work, prayer, mantras, anything that's going to draw your consciousness back from worldly sense indulgence, egoistic pursuits to recognizing who you are at a core level, your higher self, your deeper inner being. And so whatever kind of practices to help keep you aligned. And I prefer meditation and breath work. Exercises like introspection, to keep yourself constantly reviewing what you're doing so you don't get too far off. It seems like the more that we allow ourselves not to watch what we're doing and get farther off our path, the less happy and the less respect we end up having for ourselves. And we turn around and we feel terrible, and we have to walk this essentially walk of shame back to get ourselves aligned. So the more we can introspect, it's like a sailboat making small tacks to stay on target, rather than get blown way off course and then having to make a new tack to get back on. So introspection helps. Exercise, regular physical culture is really something that will cultivate respect. There's nothing worse than feeling out of shape, feeling like you're slow, like you're lethargic, like you're not taking care of yourself. To cultivate this inner inharmony and disrespect for yourself. So that's important. That's important. I'm checking in. Amanda, what did you have tattooed on your arm? Respect, or nonviolence towards all living beings. That ahimsa then, probably. All right, that's probably when we were talking about that. So another way to help respect yourself, it goes along with physical culture, is regular cleanses. Cleanses, fasting for physical cleanse, emotional cleanse activities, and this again is where breath work comes in. To give yourself a chance to cleanse any stagnant old garbage emotions. And then mental worry fast. This is one of the things my spiritual teacher Paramahansa Yogananda used to say: go on worry fast on a regular basis. So this addresses the physical being, the emotional being, the mental being, and imagine if, just like if your garbage men went on strike and all the garbage continued to pile up, we keep this either toxic physical garbage in us, toxic emotional garbage, and toxic mental garbage. It builds and putrefies in our system. It makes us feel bad, and it's very hard to feel respect and happiness when you're feeling bad. So one of the ways that you can respect yourself, and this is something that I've been working on myself for a while, and it came up, I just did a ceremony on Wednesday night, is really to honor your darkness. And this may in some ways seem counterintuitive to some of the other things we're talking about, staying in the light, staying in happiness and all this, but to recognize that we're here on this physical plane, we are dualistic beings, that there is light and there's dark. There's parts of us that we like, parts of us that we don't. And really you can undermine respect for yourself by not accepting the part of yourself that is dark. And this can be really a catch-22 or a continual negative feedback loop, because there will always be part of you that's dark. Again, we're in this dualistic balance, like the whole yin-yang symbol, if you've ever seen that. The white with a little bit of black in there, and then the black with a little bit of white circle, showing the constant balance. In the circle of the whole is always part dark and part light, part love and part hate, part day and part night. And to really recognize this, to put it on the table and be with it, neutralizes that energy in a lot of ways, and gives you a new perspective where you don't have to feel so much hate or so much animosity or so much like you have to rid yourself of this darkness. And that works leaps and bounds for helping cultivate respect in your life. And then I'd say, one of the primary ways is to give yourself regular retreats. Now, when I was a monk back in my spiritual, still living the spiritual life, but in those days when I was a monk, we used to take regular retreats. We'd have three week-long retreats a year where we just get away and recharge and regenerate. So this is important, not only if you're a monk, but anybody, to take the time to regenerate, to recalibrate. And this is what a place like Rythmia is great for. A place where you can have a complete reset of play. This is what our breathwork weeks are great for, or programs of that nature. So taking regular retreats, regular time to just honor yourself and recalibrate is vital. So checking in here, Minson Sanskrit. This happens to me all the time. I've been doing a lot of introspection and shadow work recently, as well as amazing healing going on from the collective right now, I believe. Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Worth saying, and you know, that's what it takes to. We often call it shadow work, where we confront that shadow in us and recognize that it's, you know, it's like a little child who's kind of lost their way. You don't just get rid of a child because they've behaved naughty. You bring them into the fold, and you help them to feel part of the group, and in that help them to change and see their behavior. So this, the last things I really got to say is to think about, what if you aligned all your communications and all your actions to reflect respect in your life. The net result really is going to be harmony with others, harmony with the earth and the universe, and ultimately harmony, peace, and happiness within yourself. So I think it's worth the risk to explore how to cultivate this respect, for that sake of ultimately establishing a more peaceful, harmonious life. So my Facebook Live is a little bit shorter today. I got a little bit of time open there for anybody. If you want to make any comments, if you want to ask any questions, we'll just see that Amanda's saying taking the retreat to Rythmia. All right, so is that you're gonna come here, Amanda? And Rick is saying, thank you for your knowledge, brother. I appreciate that. Always great to get that confirmation. And let's just say, if you got, oh, there we go, a few more things now. Gord, see you on April 28th. Beautiful. Wait to learn transformational breathwork. Beautiful. Well, remember to introduce yourself and say hi when you arrive. Tom, meeting some painful stuff today, and I encountered a lot of resistance. And that's pretty common. Mainly our resistance is our ego fighting back, our ego who sees things so much in black and white. And that's, one of the reasons why we tend to fight our darkness, is because the ego feels like, one way is the right and one way is the wrong. And if you're not fully on board with one way, it doesn't see how gray or how multicolored experience really is. And that's, once again, why something like breath work can really help move you through that resistance. So I'd recommend that for you, Tom and Rick. P.S. Your last video has had a really positive effect with how I have been treating my partner. That's really great to hear, Rick, and I appreciate that greatly. You make me happy, and that let's hope my thoughts have a positive effect on how I treat my partner, and of course how everybody treats theirs, and again how you ultimately end up treating yourself as well. Oh, Leaf from Copenhagen, hello. And Randy says, how can we best be of help to those in a dark place? The best way, the worst way is to say, hey, you're in a dark place, get out of there. Like to try to tell them they're wrong or that they need to get out. Often we've seen even people who are in abusive situations tend to stay in it until they're prepared to get out. So I think the best thing you can do is be of the light, meaning to express your respect for these people, respect for the things that you do see that are positive in their life, and help them feel good about themselves, because when they start feeling good about themselves, they start to see that in contrast to the darkness. And another may be, like I said earlier, to acknowledge your own darkness, to help them acknowledge that their darkness isn't necessarily an evil place, right? That we, being dualistic beings of both dark and light, will find ourselves in light periods and in dark periods, in light periods and dark periods, and that this is a natural progression of life, that, to the extent that we can shine our light, that depth of darkness is there. So if we really recognize that, once again, we stop saying light is good, dark is bad, but we consider them both neutral, and recognize it's more about how we honor and respect ourselves as we flow through these different states of being. So maybe helping them see that despite the darkness, this is perhaps a necessary step in their own evolutionary process. Hopefully that helps, Randy. Andrew, hello from Australia, and Gord, yeah, RESPECT. Should have started this whole thing with Aretha Franklin starting it. So with that, Adriana, hi Angel, be blessed. Right on. Lots of good likes and comments. Again, if you got any other things you want to say, feel free to put them out. Today's subject was a little bit shorter than I normally do. I think I kind of like that in some ways. I'm going to try to shorten these down to make them a little more bite-sized than the typical hour-long that I've been doing. So one more chance to see. I got Randy. So Randy says thank you, and I'll say thank you. So with that, that's our Christian Minson signing off for this week. Hopefully giving you a little bit of insight and the importance of respect for others, for the earth, and ultimately for yourself, how everything really, when you've got issues with respect, if you really want to go to the core quickly, first look at how you are respecting or not respecting yourself. Use some of the suggestions I made for how to cultivate that respect, and see if that doesn't change your life for the better and help you live a more happiest, harmonious existence. So with that, I'm signing off for this week. Namaste. See you next week.